Hello everyone, in this video we are going to speak about the print function. Specifically, what does it mean that sometimes we separate our argument with a plus sign or the comma? If we look at the definition of the print function in Python documentation, we'll notice that it looks like this. So I'll just bring it up. Okay, so the arguments that it takes is up to 5. So the objects is basically the first argument. This is mandatory, so we have to have at least this argument separated. Then in future videos I can speak about these, but for now I'm going to be focusing only on objects. But then we have also sep, the separator, and then we've also got end, and we've got the file and flush. So the like I said, the mandatory one would be the first argument. So let's speak about that one. So the first argument is objects. This is the only required argument, and the other 4 are optional, referring to these. Okay. Now objects here means the objects or arguments to be printed to screen or file. There could be one or many. That's why we've got the asterisk there. So saying we need at least one object to be printed to screen, and we can have many as well. Each argument is separated by a comma. But what does it mean when plus is used instead of a comma? So I'm just going to ask the user to enter a string. I'll call my variable user entry. Use the input function to grab entry from the user with a message. So enter a value. Just for now I'm keeping it very simple. Okay, that's it. And then if I want to print this out to the user, I'll use the print function, and I'll say user entered. And what I'm going to do now is use the plus sign to concatenate the user entry, the entry that was entered by the user basically. So what does this mean as opposed to if I've actually done this? Sorry, I've pasted the wrong line. What does that mean? What is the difference between this line and this line? So we've got some explanation written here. Using the plus here means to concatenate to an existent argument or object. So we can think of this as this is our object. Therefore, it will be treated as one big string. So when we say plus, all we are doing is adding this value to our existing object. So all of this will just be one object. In this example, one object is passed as a single argument to the print function. So I hope this makes sense. Because we say plus, this is treated as one whole object. Whereas if we use a comma like we've done here, then here we are passing 2 arguments to the print function. So if we go back up to this part here, or this part, literally now we are sending 2 objects. But in our first example, because we've actually concatenated to our, so this is our first object and we've concatenated to it this value. So this is just one object. So objects over here is equal to 1 in this particular case. Whereas this one over here this is object 1, that string, and this is object 2, which is also a string stored in a variable. So using a comma means we are passing 2 arguments to the print function. The print function will convert the argument into strings. So whatever this one is going to be a string, even if it wasn't. So in this case, it is actually a string, but if it was a float or if it was an integer, then it's going to be a string. And separates them with a space by default. So over here, there's going to be a space by default. So let me just get rid of any spaces that we have, and I'll show you what that looks like when we run it. So if I say test, you'll see that when we've concatenated, it's just added the string to whatever value we've got here. Whereas with the comma, it actually treats this as an individual object and then adds a space and then prints out the second object. I hope this makes sense. Let's move on. We can also add more arguments to the print function. In the sense, more objects. Okay, it will also be treated as objects to be printed. So I can actually add more arguments I can send a float and I can send an integer. All of that will be converted or treated as a string. So this is one whole string. And notice how we've got spaces between them. So for this particular example, when I'm concatenating, it's important to put a space if you cared about the way this looked. Okay, I hope this made sense and helped you understand what it means to have a plus instead of a comma. And I'll see you in the next video where we speak about the separator argument. And I'll see you then.